the first person pronoun, we present a legislative statement on the racing industry, brackets closure of Greyhound Racing Industry, in the brackets amendment bill.
The legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the parliamentary website. The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Speaker, we move that the racing industry, brackets closure of Greyhound Racing Industry, brackets amendment bill, be now read a first time. We nominate the Primary Production Committee to consider the bill. At the appropriate time, we intend to move that the bill be reported to the House by 13 March 2026. Mr. Speaker, since 2021, the Greyhound Racing Industry has been on notice after 3 successive reviews over a decade, all found animal welfare concerns and a need for change. These concerns clearly put the industry's social licence to operate under threat, and in December last year the decision was finally made to close commercial greyhound racing in New Zealand from 1 August 2026. This decision was not taken lightly. Many MPs are adverse to any business shutting down. It was acknowledged that the industry and the greyhound racing in New Zealand had undertaken genuine efforts in recent years to improve animal welfare. However, it was considered that the rates of dogs being seriously injured remained too high, and the improvements made were not significant enough for the industry to retain its social licence. The decision to close was also taken against the backdrop of greyhound racing declining worldwide. Since December 2024, Wales, Tasmania and Scotland have all followed suit. It is pleasing to note that Greyhound Racing New Zealand has withdrawn its judicial review against the government. We encourage members of Greyhound Racing New Zealand and the wider racing community to actively engage in the select committee process and focus on the way forward. Mr. Speaker, to close our own industry, a carefully managed approach has been undertaken. The approach comprises of 2 bills. The first bill was the racing industry, brackets unlawful destruction of specified greyhounds, end of brackets amendment bill of 2024, which unanimously passed all stages of this House on 10 December last year. That bill was to prevent the unnecessary killing of racing dogs, as the announcement of an incoming closure meant that racing greyhounds became less economically valuable or viable. And I thank members across the House for their unanimous support of that bill. It was necessary that the first bill was passed under urgency to immediately put in place protections for the greyhounds themselves, and it was undertaken in the knowledge that a second, more substantive bill that would close the industry would follow and allow for public input. Mr. Speaker, that leads us to the second bill, the bill before the House today, the racing industry, brackets closure of Greyhound Racing Industry, in the brackets amendment bill. This bill's primary intent is to close the industry in a way which prioritises greyhound welfare and the well-being of greyhound racing participants throughout the closure process. This bill is based on the recommendations of the Greyhound Racing Ministerial Advisory Committee, which was established to provide expert independent advice on the closure and oversight. The committee, which is comprised of Heather Simpson as chair and Lindsay Burton and Murray Johnson as members, has met and continues to meet with a range of industry bodies and organisations. They've also maintained close contact with Greyhound Racing New Zealand. From its meetings, the committee delivered a report at the end of May with a set of detailed recommendations for the legislative changes needed to close the industry in a measured way. And thank you to the committee for its ongoing hard work and its well-informed report. And thank you to all of those who were engaged with the committee in good faith. After further consideration, the committee's report was released in August, alongside the announcement that the government agreed with the committee's recommendations and would proceed with a bill that implements those recommendations. Mr. Speaker, the bill sets out the framework for a transition to closure for the industry, which prioritises the welfare of greyhounds and is concerned with the smooth transition out of the industry for affected people. To provide a well-managed closure, this bill comes into effect over 3 stages. This will ensure a framework for closure is in place before commercial greyhound racing ends on 1 August 2026. It will also allow sufficient time for some subsequent work to wind up the greyhound racing industry, such as ensuring that greyhounds are successfully rehomed over time. The first stage will be from the day after royal assent and lays down the framework for closure ahead of 1 August 26. This stage will see the establishment of a transition agency responsible for ensuring that a transition plan relating to Greyhound Racing New Zealand is in place to wind up the industry. It's intended that the current members of the Ministerial Advisory Committee will be appointed to the board of the transition agency, and collectively these members hold relevant skills and experience in governance, project management and animal welfare. These members have built the necessary relationships to continue working with the industry, and it's in everyone's best interest that engagement and good faith continues. The agency would be responsible for, amongst other things, ensuring a transition plan is in place, closing Greyhound Racing New Zealand, GRNZ and clubs, facilitating greyhound rehoming and supporting industry participants. The second stage is from 1 August 26 and will bring the actual closure of commercial greyhound racing in this country. This stage will see the removal of references to greyhound racing from the Racing Industry Act, so it is no longer permitted. During this stage, Greyhound Racing New Zealand will be dissolved and appropriate remaining functions will be transferred to the agency. Finally, Mr Speaker, the third stage will see the repeal of provisions relating to the agency. While the bill anticipates the agency will have completed its function within 3 years, it allows for some flexibility in timing in case there is still some outstanding work at that time. Hence, this third stage comes into force on a date set by Order in Council, but no later than 31 July 2031. We might be possibly still around to see what's going on at the time. Once this is established, any residual assets held by the agency would be distributed to the other racing codes. And this transition to closure needs to be as smooth as possible. Members of the greyhound racing industry, wider stakeholders and the general public are all encouraged to engage with the Select Committee process, so this bill and this process is as robust as possible. It should also be noted that whilst the Select Committee is undertaking its consideration of the bill, the Ministerial Advisory Committee will continue its work to lay the groundwork for the transition agency. This includes ongoing work with greyhound rehoming organisations to identify what practical steps are desirable to scale up the rehoming effort. Finally, greyhounds make great companion animals, and we encourage New Zealanders to consider adopting them as the industry is wound up. We will need to find these dogs homes. Mr Speaker, in conclusion, the bill is commended to the House. Thank you.
Any comments?
Oh, I
He
mean,
kind of explained exactly.
I think he's kind of almost said it all, really. But
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't have much argument with him, really. I think the general public has sort of shifted in the direction of to want the greyhound industry shut, and I think it's good. It's good, really, that he's doing this.
And I wonder what the assets are going to be transferred to. Conversions of greyhound racing tracks into horse racing tracks?
Yeah, that's the really interesting part about this, because Winston is known to be a big supporter of the horse racing industry. So I'm just wondering how this relates to the horse racing industry. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing. Yeah, this is a positive move.
Yeah. It is something that, because I just wonder what the assets will be transferred to and how the whole ins and outs of the new assets would work. It's it's interesting. Yeah. Oh, let's get on to our second speech from Rachel Boyack.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube,